Not so long ago, we were zone pushing to even think about growing citrus in Central Texas. But these days, we can harvest many fruits of our own. To get us started, we're thrilled to welcome horticulturalist and certified arborist Mary Kay Pope from Backbone Valley Nursery. How are you doing, Mary Kay?
I'm very well, thank you.
Let's talk about Backbone Valley Nursery.
I've been with Backbone for 10 years. Backbone Valley Nursery is family owned. It's been in production for 26 years, since 1999.
Wow. Okay.
And it is a retail garden center with a tree farm and a very large mountain laurel growing facility.
Texas is famous for its sort of weird freezes we're starting to get now. We're talking about citrus plants that are okay for here in Central Texas that you could plant in the ground. What are our options?
I'm going to put okay in quotes because you know, we'll get 10 to 12 years before we have a real killing freeze like we had in 21.
Right.
But we do have some citrus that can be winter hardy down to 15 degrees or so.
Okay.
And that's if they are hardened off. So it really depends on your pre-chilling, like if they've ever received any cold before the really cold hits.
So by pre-chilling, you mean that is it that year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they need to be exposed to cold before the real cold comes.
Okay, toe dipping.
Yes, and it's not that you won't get any damage, it's just that they won't be killed. Some of my favorites to try in the ground would be the Calamandan orange, the Satsuma mandarin orange, a tangerine, and those are probably the best to try in the ground.
Okay.
They, like I said, they may be killed back, but they will come back usually if you protect the lower trunk and the roots.
Okay, and those come back because of graft stocks?
No.
Or how does that work?
No, it's that the plant itself is more winter hardy than, say, limes, which are very tender, and lemons that are more tender.
Okay.
I have had some instances where the improved Meyer lemon had been planted in the ground in, say, Bee Cave, Texas, which is zone 8, and made it for 10, 12 years before getting killed. The trick is you have to protect the lower trunk, whether it has a graft or not, about 15 to 18 inches up with a soil bank.
What does that mean? Are you pulling up soil up
You
against
are.
the trunk?
You are mounding soil up above the graft if it's grafted, or 15 inches if it's not.
Okay.
And it is regular soil, not compost, not mulch. The bottom of the bank should be in contact with real soil. That is the way that the heat will be conducted the best.
Interesting. That's really weird because usually we don't want to have soil up around.
It's a temporary thing.
Right,
If you
right.
think it's going to be on there for very long, you probably should use an insecticide and a copper fungicide on it before you bank it.
Okay, okay, great news. Well, so you mentioned some of the temps, but again, what are those temps that are, those varieties, like they're going to be okay with, you said 15 degrees or so?
15,
19?
I think the Arctic frost Satsuma, Texas A&M had it down to 11 degrees at the Overton
Okay.
Research Station, I think. But not much lower than that, and that's just, that's not without damage, but
Right.
that's surviving if it has been preconditioned by earlier freezes.
Right.
If we got that freeze in the fall,
It's not.
Never mind.
Not happening. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what about less hardy plants, but ones that we potentially can grow in containers? What are some varieties there, and why would you want to look at that? Maybe you don't have room for those, or what about
well,
container plants?
if you don't have proper soil in the ground, and you don't have a protected location like a south or southeast location, which is protected from the northwest winds, you can grow any kind of citrus in a pot.
Okay.
My favorite, of course, is the improved Meyer lemon, but the Kaffir lime, any type of grapefruit, regular oranges, any of the more limes. Oh, limes are very cold tender, but you can grow them in pots
Okay.
all the time. Now, there are some guidelines that you need to follow for growing in pots.
Okay.
And I think the biggest mistake I think I've seen people make is putting a plant, once they purchase it, a small plant, into a really large pot.
Ah.
This isn't going to work. You have a plant that really, citrus doesn't have a really large root system in a pot, and you can have a very large plant in a small pot.
Okay.
And then this plant will produce a lot of fruit for you.
Okay.
But we call this overpotting. And when you do that, there's a couple things that happen. One is you can't get your moisture relations right because all the roots are in that original root ball. And as the plant uses the moisture and loses it from the leaves, it's replaced by the moisture in that root ball. All this extra soil is doing nothing but holding excess moisture, and it really makes it difficult to get the soil moisture relations right in the pot.
Okay.
The other thing this does is if you plant it in a large ceramic pot, knowing that you're going to have to protect it in the winter doesn't seem that that's a very astute way to do things.
Right.
I prefer to keep them in their plastic pots. Now, if they get to the point where they need a bigger pot, go a 4 to 6 inch jump in pot size at one time
Okay.
with a quality potting soil, and double pot. Take that plastic pot and set it down into your ceramic pot.
Okay.
That way you make it easier to transplant. You make it easier to bring into the garage or your house in the wintertime.
Sure.
Nobody's going to move a big heavy pot.
Yeah.
And there is one added benefit to having it in a plastic pot: watering.
Okay.
When we're watering plants in the pots, a lot of people like to put their finger down in them and feel the soil, or you might use a moisture meter, and that works just fine. But when you're ready to water, if you would simply lift that pot and see the weight of that pot, it gives you a really good idea as to how much water is left from the last time you watered.
Interesting.
So if once you're finished watering, you lift the pot and it's really heavy, you can judge when it's half that heavy and maybe it's dry 3 inches down when you put your finger in, then you can pretty much determine that's the time to water.
Okay. Well, that's a great resource. Well, another one, what about pruning?
They require very little pruning. This
Okay.
is what I like about them. You can shape them, or if they're getting too big, which does happen sometimes because they really do well in pots, you can prune them back to limit their size. There's 2 exceptions. One is if a sucker comes out below the graft.
Okay.
That's not going to be a productive
Right.
shoot, so you want to keep the suckers pruned off. There's another shoot that comes off called a water sprout.
Right.
And it'll come off higher in the tree, and it also is not a real good producer of fruit. So you'd want to remove the water sprouts.
Okay, and what about fertilizing?
Fertilizing, I generally fertilize 3 times a year.
Okay.
Many different ways to do things, but
Right.
this is my rule of thumb. When they start to bloom, when they start to put on new growth in the spring is the first time. And when they set fruit is the second time, so usually late spring. And then once again in the fall, like September or October. And I found that a 2-1-1, that's
Right. NPK, yeah.
NPK, with micros, because they do use magnesium, zinc, manganese, copper, is the best thing to use. And if you have an organic fertilizer, of course, we always recommend that.
Okay. And how do you know when the fruit is ripe?
That's my favorite thing. You have to try it.
Okay.
You have to actually, there is no way to feel it or look at it and know that it's ripe. You actually have to kind of look at when the fruit was set, and the guidelines will be, you can find articles online of
Right.
how many months it takes to ripen. But generally, most of the Satsuma mandarins would set fruit in the spring. And then they'd grow all summer, and they'll start to turn orange in the fall, and they will ripen over the winter.
Right.
The reason why we can't jump the gun and take them all off is once they're off the tree, they do not continue to ripen like
Okay.
tomatoes.
Okay.
So many people will leave their satsumas on the tree all winter long, and they just get sweeter and sweeter.
Well, Mary Kay, thank you so much for coming. I want to mention too, really briefly, you have a weekly newsletter about chock full of all this wonderful information, and a website as well.
Yes.
And come visit you at Backbone Valley Nursery
In Marble Falls,
in
Texas.
Marble Falls, Texas. Well, thank you so much again, Mary Kay. We appreciate you sharing with us.
Thank you.